Assalamu alaikum, ladies. Alhamdulillah, I finally did it. I actually wrote a book. It's dedicated to all the single Muslim mothers out there, hence the name, How to Be a Single Muslim Mum. Inshallah, it's available as an ebook, paperback, and it will be available as an audio. Alhamdulillah. Barakallahu feekum, sisters, for the support. Check out the link in the description to get yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Samar from the Niqabi Diaries, and we're talking today about single Muslim mothers. Inshallah, so we have a guest with our sister Inaya. Sister Inaya, could you please introduce yourselves to the listeners, please, inshallah?
Okay, wa alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name's Inaya. I have 2 children, and I currently self-employed. I do tutoring, and I'm looking to start another business soon, inshallah.
Inshallah, Allah barik, may Allah grant you success. I mean, so, sister, how long have you been a single mother?
9 years.
9 years.
9 years. Yeah, to work that out. It's been a long time. Yeah, 9 years now.
And what would you say are some of the initial challenges that single Muslim mothers face?
I mean, for me at first, my children were babies at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, to be honest, that takes up all your attention. So I didn't really realise anything at the time other than the fact I had 2 babies, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that just took all my attention. But as they obviously get a bit older, I've realised that struggling with things like finding time to yourself, childcare, going to appointments, where if I had like a doctor's appointment or appointment you can't take the children,
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 babies, what do I do? So they were my initial struggles when they were still quite small.
Mm-hmm. So it's basically kind of a lack of like the kind of physical support in a sense. Like the physical
So I think because at the time, obviously, just going through a divorce and then being small, I kind of blocked a lot of other things out. I think you just go into automatic mode. So they were my main initial struggles, where you was having to cope with a toddler and a baby, and you're trying to have an appointment, or I know you want to go to the bank and you've got a toddler and a baby running around the bank and things. So they were my main struggles at the time. How do I navigate the things where you basically need your children if they're there to be quiet and still?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's best not to go if you've got small children that just can't sit there and be quiet.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So
Yeah, it can be difficult, especially in situations where, like you said, you need them to keep quiet, and then maybe they're crying for something, and it's like you get these stares, isn't it? People will look at you. I mean, I think any mother experiences this anyways with children in general, but when you're a single mother,
yeah,
you feel even more self-conscious about these kind of things.
Yeah, I think you do, because I mean, if there's a couple there, I guess you can just say to the person, go outside with the child or take them into the corner or something. But when it's just you, and especially if it's somewhere that you go to on a regular basis, feel a bit like you don't know how to control your children.
Yeah.
Although it's not control, but that's kind of the thoughts that kind of go through your head when your children are just being children.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're like 2 and 3 and 4, that's what they do. It's that age. So yeah, you can feel it can feel more stressful than the situation actually is.
Yes.
When it's just you dealing with everything.
Yes, subhanAllah. So what would you say you personally feel some of the stigmas within the Muslim community are with regards to single Muslim mothers?
I think one of the common questions that I've had people ask me or make a comment or ask someone else is, why did your husband leave you? And I don't like that question, because it just says so much. Number one, it's saying that he left.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's like an underlying blame on the woman.
Yes.
And it could, some people split amicably. It's a case of we're just not compatible.
Yeah.
So they just split. It doesn't have to be, one left the other one and it was bad and this, that and the other. So I just don't like the assumption. It's like, your husband left you, what did you do?
Yeah.
I mean, before they know, your husband could have passed away. People just assume, they just assume that he's the one that left, and it just makes, I think it just puts all the blame on the woman, and then it can make you feel like, well, you're at fault even though you know your situation obviously better than them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that is one of the main things, and also find that people will assume that your children won't be well behaved, and they won't know about the faith because there's not a man in the house. But even if you do, or with your husband, everyone knows that usually the mother is a primary teacher.
Exactly.
Because if you're from a traditional background, the husband goes to work. So if the children are at home between ages of 0 and 5, during 9 till 5, it's the mum that's teaching them. So I just don't like the fact that people assume if you don't have a husband, your children won't be well behaved, the children won't know anything about the faith. Which then kind of implies the mum is lacking in faith as well.
Basically,
automatically, that's what that means.
Yeah.
And it's not always directly said, but if you listen to conversations and comments people make, that's kind of what people think. And I feel also I'm black, and I then get the stereotype of, oh, well, for black women it's normal to not have a dad around.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I feel like I feel like the same thing, because I don't know if you're a revert as well, sister, but like I felt like when I got divorced, it was one of the things, like it was almost like you almost feel like you're being watched in the community, because like it's like people kind of looking to see like, oh, is she going to still be Muslim as well? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's divorced now, so is she going to still be a Muslim? And like you said, you feel like people almost expect your children to not be well behaved, because like after a few years of being single, I started hearing comments from people like, oh, mashallah, she's like still Muslim, and, mashallah, her children, they're so well behaved. And people was like starting to like give me compliments. Like, it's almost like they wasn't expecting that at all,
Yeah. I 100%, I'm a revert as well. So yeah, I've had that from, to be honest, I've had it from both sides. I've had it from Muslims, and I've had it from my non-Muslim kind of side and family, where they're still like, oh, you're still Muslim. I was like, well, I didn't become Muslim just for a man, and then that brings a whole different issue with your family. So you do get comments, as children progress, people do make comments, and to be honest, I don't respond, because I think I know it will turn to an argument. So I don't respond. I just pretend that I don't hear them. But I don't like the assumption that, but, you came from a background where it's normal for the dad not to be around, because I'm from Caribbean background. And I'm like, but that's not normal for a dad not to be around, whether it's their birth dad or a stepdad. There's quite often people do have a father figure around. It's not normal. We don't just have all these babies and no fathers around. So it's like it's an assumption that, for you it's easy. You're just used to it. It's like water off a duck's back for you. And I think with that kind of thinking, no one bothers to check if you're okay, if you need any help. Just think, oh yeah, she's got it. And we're human like every other woman, and obviously there's times where we are going to need help and support. So but yeah, so on that, one of the things I was thinking about when I read this question was, there's a question I get asked more often than I should be asked, and I have had people ask me if my children are Muslim.
Subhanallah.
And I always want to ask them, I don't get where you're going with that question. I just don't understand the question. And it's like, I don't know, are you assuming that, I don't even know what I don't know what that question means.
Yeah, that's really weird,
I was like, I just don't get it. Do you assume that, I don't know, because I'm single, my children's father was never Muslim.
Yeah, I had the same.
I don't know what it implies. Does it imply that Muslim men don't leave their wives? I don't get it. It's like I just don't understand.
People used to.
I just don't understand the question.
Yeah, people wouldn't ask me if my children were Muslim, but they would ask me if their father was a Muslim. So I think that was kind of less negative, because obviously when people know that you're a reaver, it could be that you was married before you became Muslim and your children are from, a non-Muslim.
Yeah.
So I could understand from that perspective, but for them to just ask you if your children are Muslim, and your children are still like relatively young, isn't it? They're not like...
Yeah, I've had it when they're young, and I've had it, to be honest, I had the question not too long ago as well. But these are from people who know that I've been Muslim longer than my children are alive.
Yes, subhanAllah.
But this is, I just think to myself, but I've been Muslim a lot longer than my children have been alive. So it's like, what are you implying? I just don't get it. I have children. I just think that if I was, I don't know, say I was from Arab or Asian Muslim culture, they would never ask that question.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be a question that would cross their mind.
Exactly.
Never mind come out of their mouths. So I just think, why? Is it even important anyway? And number two, that you always see my children with me. And these sisters, I normally see them in the masjid. So it's like, I don't normally see outside the masjid. It's a weird question to ask.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question. Like, we touched a little bit on the issue of support for Muslim mothers. So what kind of support systems do you personally have by way of family and friends and in the Muslim community in general?
So with my family, my faith hasn't made any difference. It's taken some time, obviously, to get used to things that we do differently.
Yeah.
Eating's not a big deal. I guess it's more with children's sweets. Because, alhamdulillah, a lot of Caribbean people buy halal meat anyway. So things like that was not much of an issue. It's more when you come to cakes, drinks and sweets, where there's meat products in them that you wouldn't think would be in it. And that was a problem at first, where if I left my children with my mum or something and, I see them with a pack of sweets, like, they can't eat them.
Yeah.
So she's like, but they're the sweets. What's in them? I'm like, they can't eat them.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the main issues. I said, look, I've just told them, like, just don't buy them sweets. For the first probably 5 years, I was like, just don't give them anything to do with sweets or cake, please. And then as I got older, I taught the children to recognise what they can and can't eat.
Yes.
So I've just told them, just have this, if you go to the shop, just buy this bag of sweets. That's the only sweets you're allowed to have.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, my children are older and they can read packets and they know what they can and can't eat. And my family now come to recognise what they can and can't eat. So alhamdulillah, it's been quite easy with, I guess, my side as a family. And I guess with I'll just say my in-laws, it makes it easier. With their side, we communicate. I'm able to communicate with with their grandparents and their aunties independently, which I thank Allah for, because it just makes things easier. Because then I can still have that support if I need to. If I don't know, say their dad can't look after them, I can say, oh, well, what about you, mum and dad? Are they free?
Yeah.
Just like I would do, but with my mum and dad, I can do that. And alhamdulillah, we've reached a point now where it's fine and we can communicate really well. So that works out well. It's just that we live in different cities.
Okay.
So that's a bit of
Are they from a Muslim background as well?
Yeah, so they're Asian. So they're from an Asian background. So alhamdulillah, we get on fine.
Alhamdulillah,
with the immediate family. I don't know the extended family, just with their grandparents, their aunties, everything's fine. So alhamdulillah, I can't complain.
Alhamdulillah, that's good. That's great.
But with my local everyday Muslim community, I feel there isn't much support. There isn't much, you know, and I think this is where masjids kind of need to look at their services a bit more.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a Muslim family where someone might know where the children can go and learn tajweed, or where to go and get something sewn, or where to go and buy this book or that book. Or when you have your children, for instance, if you are single at the time of having a child, there's so many things that need to be done that you might not know where to go. For instance, shaving the baby's head, like where do you go to get that done? How is it supposed to be done?
Yeah.
If you have a son, circumcision, because you can't just go to your normal doctor and ask it to be done.
Of course.
There's so many things that if you don't have, you know, a Muslim family where it's something that everyone's been through at some point, or they know where to go to, it's like, where do you turn to? Who do you ask? And even just which masjid to send your children to learn tajweed, and it's just simple things. Where can I get clothing, books? And I find that, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but where I am, you can reach out and ask people, and it seems that no one seems to know. And I think when you do know, because obviously you use these services yourself.
Of course.
Or people look at you like, well, don't you know? And I think, you know, no, I don't know. And just things like, oh, you know, so-and-so does it. No, I don't know they do it. That's why I'm asking you.
Exactly.
And I don't mean to be rude, but if I'm asking you a question, I honestly, I don't know. And I find it can be so difficult. And I think this is where we find revert sisters, especially when they're single, would just tend to not bother. They just don't bother to ask anymore.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
So they can just carry on as normal and just think, well, it can be hard work trying to find out. So I think the masjids need to have, I don't know, like a little directory or something.
Yeah.
So you can go to the masjid and say, you know, where can I get this? And they can pass on numbers or point you to, oh, this sister will know, or contact this brother or this organisation, rather than you asking, you know, 10 different people and probably still getting nowhere. So yeah, I think the masjids in particular play a big part, because where I'm from, the Muslim community is very segregated. Everyone sticks to their own culture.
Yeah.
So it's a struggle. It's the struggle to find out what you need to know. Especially if you don't have, you know, your in-laws, if you're still not in a union, it's just you by yourself trying to work things out. So I think definitely the masjids, and I just think Muslims in general need to be a bit more, you know, there's open-minded is the right word.
Yeah.
But just, I don't know, if you're Asian, just as you would invite your Asian Muslim friend over, do the same for someone that's, you know, from a white background or black background.
Yeah.
We're all Muslim at the end of the day. Most of us speak the same language in England. Most of us speak English. So there's not anything preventing that other than ourselves. And I think people forget how vital it is, just in general, if you become Muslim, to feel accepted. And then if you're a single mother, you need that network even more, because then otherwise it's just you and your children, which is not healthy for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. SubhanAllah. So, what about, like, how do you cope with keeping your children stable as a single mother, with regards to, for example, co-parenting, education, and also the emotional support that they need?
I think just I think when I became a single mother, I just got on with it. It was just the situation I'm in. Let's just get on with it. And I've always tried to keep things as normal as possible for my children. I've never wanted the fact that they don't have a mum and dad in the house. That means you can't do something.
Yeah.
Because I've said before, their dad could be gone because of death. There's so many reasons someone might not be there. He could work away. So it doesn't mean that their life stops and they can't do everything they need to do. So we've always done everything was normal, and my children didn't even realise that, I guess, and I'm doing air quotes to myself, we didn't have a normal family until they had been in school for a few years and other children were talking, and then they was like, oh. But I remember my daughter saying, they were talking at school about something, and she was saying, my mum does all of that. My mum just does it much because my mum does it all.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the other children were like, what do you mean your mum does it all? She goes, my mum does all of that. She goes, and then she's like, oh, it's me, my brother, and my mum. My daughter's frame of mind was kind of, not in a bad way, do you need a dad to do something, but she's just like, well, why can't you do it if your dad's not there?
Yeah.
Where the other children were like, how can you do it if your dad's not there?
Yeah.
So I just thought it was interesting when she was coming home from school and was having these conversations. But I've always tried to keep it normal because it is normal.
Yes.
Your situation is normal. We can't find anywhere where Allah has said you have to have mum and dad in the house till, I don't know, you're 25 and you move out or get married. That's not written anywhere.
Yeah.
Ideally, you have your parents together, but circumstances happen and you might not have two parents, and that is still normal.
Yeah.
Even as a Muslim, it's normal. And so I've always tried to keep things as normal as possible. And alhamdulillah, their father and I, it's taken a while. We've now reached a level where we're on the same page and we can communicate well. We've got to a point where, alhamdulillah, we kind of trust each other enough to make certain decisions without necessarily having to be involved.
Alhamdulillah.
So they live with me, so the dad knows I'm their primary caregiver. So he has to trust me to do the things that need to be done. So I can't call him all the time to ask him anything. It's just not what it is. It's just not doable all the time, and you have to make a decision on the spot and things. So he has to trust me to make the right decision, and also I have to trust him when he has children to make the right decision, which can be difficult when you are the primary caregiver.
Of course, definitely.
to kind of let go of that, I guess, control, and just that, okay, just have faith in the Lord that everything will be fine. But big decisions we do discuss, like I would, for instance, education. We discuss what type of education they will have. I don't know, school trips. Yeah. Depending on what the school trip is. I remember there was a camping trip. We discussed that because obviously it's overnight away from home, no parents. Small school trips where they're just going to a museum and things. Obviously, I just don't discuss that. It's just a basic school trip. But, of course, things where we're not directly going to be involved. We discussed that after school activities. We discussed things like that. So I'm like, oh, the children want to try this. And I think it's important to keep the other parent involved. And I know as women we can just get into the mum mode and it's automatic and we do everything ourselves. I've had to learn this myself, where I've had to learn to, maybe say to the dad, okay, if they've got something on Tuesday, kind of you're taking them type thing. I'm not always being the parent to take them, can you take them, sign it up? Can you go and check it out? Rather than me doing everything. Because I have to remember they do have two parents, although we're not under the same roof. They do have two parents and I don't have to take on everything. Of course. Co-parenting is not just sharing finances, it's sharing everything. Definitely. So, but like I said, it's not been easy. It's taken years. And alhamdulillah, we're there. Alhamdulillah, that's good. That's good. So,
what, like we have touched on this as well a little bit, but what kind of help do you think single mothers need, single Muslim mothers especially need?
I think one of the main things relates to is studying the deen. It's increasingly difficult to go to classes because a lot of classes will say you can't bring children.
Yeah.
And quite often that means you can't attend. But if you don't have that, I guess, Muslim network that kind of understand what you're going to do for 2 hours in the masjid, it can be difficult to explain to someone, can you look after my child for 2 hours while I go to the masjid to go and learn something. Some people don't really have a faith and don't class it's important. So for them, they'll probably try and be like, no, it's not important. They probably prefer to look after your child because you wanted to go out to eat than to learn something like that.
Yeah.
I think some of the classes need to be a bit more flexible. If you're saying my children will be quiet, then let's just say, okay, sister, attend and, bring your children. But if they're not quiet, then obviously we'll have to tell you can't bring them. I think it's too rigid, and it's a struggle where you end up having to try and teach yourself, or you end up learning the wrong thing, and you don't get to socialise.
Yeah, I suppose there's that element of lack of interaction as well, because it makes you more isolated from the community, isn't it? Because learning the deen is one of the ways you can, mix more with other like-minded sisters as well.
Yeah, because Hamza now is fine. I remember before my children were smaller, and I was trying to go to classes, and it was like, you can't come because you have a baby. It's like, but the baby will be asleep.
Yeah.
Type thing, or they're really small. They're only like a couple of months. They don't really make much noise. They're crying because they need feeding.
Yeah.
As soon as you give them a bottle or whatever, they're quiet. It's going to be 2 seconds. No, a couple of minutes. It's not going to be that disruptive, but it does isolate you. And there's so many sisters who just, for the first 3-4 years of their children, until their children probably go to school, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Because they've got children, and everyone will say that you can't bring your children. And I just think that, the masjids need to think about, if they're putting on maybe a class or something, to allow, I guess this is a chance to bring their children. If it's not working, then obviously it doesn't work. Or maybe if they can get another volunteer that can look after the children in a separate room or something, so that sisters can go and learn. Because if you're single, it's just you at the end of the day, and you've got your child with you until they go to school. So it's like, when do we learn?
Exactly.
Education is still just important for us, and if you ask us, what we normally do is we end up learning after the children have gone to bed, so 9-10 o'clock at night. You're mentally and emotionally tired anyway, so studying then becomes a bit like a burden, because you're just thinking, I'm tired, but you want to learn, so you're struggling when you're tired, and you're working through the night, and it can start to feel like a struggle. And I feel often we don't finish a lot of things that we start.
Yeah.
Because that time of night, some people are night owls, fair enough, but you've been all day looking after children and the house and the home, and if you go to work and things like that, by the time 8, 9, 10 o'clock, you're exhausted, and
of course,
you just don't have the mental capacity
definitely
to learn by yourself. And so I think that is one of the things that I feel most places could really improve on. And I think also like things like celebrations, so Eid. I find a lot of single mothers, it's still just them and their children on Eid.
Yeah.
And if and it can be quite, it's lonely, because you see everyone else, talking about whose house they're going to or who they're meeting, and they're going here. And obviously we can take our children out, but it's just you and your children. And one of the conversations I had, obviously Christmas has just gone with my children, is they were asking me what Christmas is like. when I was a child. And I said, I used to love Christmas. I said, it wasn't because of the presents. I said, the thing I loved the most was, you know, going to other people's houses and then coming to your house, and you just got to spend that time with each other. It wasn't the fact that there was a Christmas tree. I said, it was the fact that everyone came together. And I think that was my favourite part of Christmas. And I just realised my children don't necessarily have that when it comes to Eid. I have obviously my circle of friends.
Because it's quite same time-ish, like, or like, you know, when you're a single mum, you're with your kids most of the time, isn't it? So, like, it's almost like, yes, you make the effort on the Eid to, like, try to make it as special for them as possible, but when there's not that added element of having extra family members around, or, you know, you're visiting other people, like you mentioned, this kind of, it takes away that extra specialness, isn't it? And I think as a single mother, you feel more self-conscious that, you know, it reminds you, like, for me personally, it just made me feel like, I'm not enough for the kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to do more for them, and you realise as well, as much as you're trying to do it as a single individual, you still can't give them the full experiences that you would want them to have, because it involves having more than just you in their life, like more people.
Yeah, it does. And I always make a point of, we will not be in the house on Eid. We will be out. Because I don't want them to be in the house and realise it's still just us in the house. Exactly, So I always make a point, we will go out and do something. And I just try and make it as special as possible for them. But when I've just realised, my son asked my mum if, because in the summer my mum tends to put on barbecues, and he asked her the other day if she will have a barbecue and if she can invite everyone. And I realised clearly he's lacking that. He's missing that, everyone coming together. Because it's not something he normally would ask for. He just out of the blue, you know, can you have one of your barbecues, and ask everyone to come round. I like it when everyone comes around. And handle it's nice, but I'm thinking it would be even better if they could have that in a Muslim environment.
Of course.
And we don't have that in a Muslim environment. So obviously in my family environment, certain things people do where we can't stay all day, or we have to kind of just let's just stay in this room and things like that, where obviously it's around Muslims, they can, you know, they can just roam free. And we don't have to worry about anything. And I do think to myself, it would be so nice if, you know, they could have that proper, you know, we're all Muslims, we're getting together. And they've just got other Muslim children that live like them, that they can be around more often. So I do, you know, that, I just think we need to, I don't know what the word is, I don't want to say welcoming. I'm going to say welcoming because I can't think of a better word. We just need to be more mindful, I guess. You know, if you know there's a sister who, even if she's not children, but, you know, she's alone, invite them round. I've noticed brothers do it.
Yeah, they do.
I noticed brothers do it. I've noticed that, you know, there's brothers that don't have Muslim family, they'll get invited somewhere. It should be the same with sisters. Even if it's just for a couple of hours, you know, it means so much to us, and it means so much to, you know, the children as well. Just people celebrating the same thing as them. It's so important, and it normalises Eid for them as well. You know how Christmas is normal in England?
Yes, definitely.
It's just normal. Even if you're not Muslim, Christmas is normal for every faith.
Exactly, yeah.
Christmas is normal, and I want my children to feel the same about Eid. Eid is normal. And it takes a community to do that. It does take a community. You can't do it by yourself, because then it's just mummy just said type thing.
Yeah,
and me just saying it.
I think as well, being a revert. I think as well, being a revert is like kind of adds on to that kind of difficulty. I don't know, like like from your experience, like how you feel on this. But for me personally, because I suppose in respect we're kind of similar, both African, well, I'm Caribbean background as well,
Yeah.
and you know, revert and stuff, and being single mum. But like I found that on the Eid, it's like you go to the Eid prayer in the morning, okay, and like everybody prays the Eid prayer after the khutbah's done. You literally, like, I don't know how it's for you, but literally you will see, like, because I was in Newcastle, and I would just see,
Okay.
like, all the Muslims, like, they section off into their groups. So you'll see, like, there'll be the Egyptian sisters together, then there'll
Yeah.
be Pakistani sisters together, Bengali sisters together. Everybody, literally, like, Algerians, everybody, you can just, you look around and you see everybody immediately gravitate towards their kind of cultural group. And you're just this one person. It's like you look around and I'll think to myself, okay, so like, where do I fit? Like, you don't fit anywhere.
Yeah.
So I over the years, what I would do is like literally, I'll just go and pray the Eid prayer. As soon as the khutbah's finished, I'll just give salams on my way out. Like, I wouldn't hang around. I would just try to leave because I felt like this is not for me. And like, then there'd be maybe some other revert sisters who were married and they've got husbands. So
Yeah.
their husbands have taken the day off work and they've already planned like a whole day for them where they're going to go out and do certain activities. And, you know, you just feel like, well, what do I do kind of thing? Do you know what I mean? So it was kind of like that. And sometimes with my ex, like he would come for the Eid and he would take the kids for the day. So that would be okay for
Yeah.
me sometimes because at least then for me, the Eid day would be like a break for me. And I know that my kids would be having like they would be doing something different from what I would be able to do with them, you know?
Yeah.
So that was like quite positive in that sense, but still, you know, you just, yeah, it's just a weird kind of, feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. The community
Yeah.
spirit of it isn't there because I can remember when my children were small and I remember being in the masjid and as you said, everyone splits off
Hmm.
and you'd see probably like 2 or 3 sisters are sat there twiddling the thumbs.
Yeah.
But then we was like, okay, sister, what are you doing? We ended up asking each other. And I remember a few Eids where I spent Eids with strangers, complete strangers, because we
Oh,
were sat there in the masjid and, you know, there was 4 or 5 of us with absolutely nothing to do.
yeah.
So we said, okay, shall we just go and get something to eat or just walk around town together? And at one point, I remember, we kind of named ourselves the Reject Group. So that's what it was a bit like. It was a bit
Yeah.
like, do you know what I mean? Just a group of rejects, because we're
Yeah.
all from different backgrounds as well. None of us knew each other, none of us from the same
Yeah.
background. It was all from somewhere different. And it was literally like, it was like that. It was like, you know, one person's from here, one person's from there, one person's
Hmm.
got children, someone's got no children. It was just such a mixed bunch. And Hamza, it doesn't bother me. I'm fine, Hamza. I like it. My children are around different people.
Yeah.
But I just thought, you know, do people not see what's happening? But you
Yeah.
can see like a sister just sat there, and it's sad. It's really, you know, it's really sad, and I just think to myself, you know, that really wouldn't happen. I've never saw that happen before I was Muslim.
Yeah.
I've never seen culture take such a big focus. Basically,
Mm.
I didn't notice it until I became Muslim, and the irony is we're just meant to be under one faith.
Exactly.
So I remember thinking, yeah, oh, you know, I'm Muslim, and I've probably like all these different people I'm going to know and meet from different places. And unfortunately, it's just not like that, is it? It's a lot harder than we probably...
And you know what it is as well? Like, it's weird. Obviously, like, both being, like, from the UK and stuff. But, like you're saying, and I didn't actually really think about this, like you've just mentioned it now, but, like, listening to what you're saying, it makes me think, like, you know, if you're in a workplace, for example, office or something like that, when it comes to the Christmas time, you automatically get invited to things. Like, even Muslims who
Yeah.
they know that you're not even the same faith, or maybe that you might not celebrate Christmas, but they will just automatically invite you to like anything that they're doing because it is that season. And
Yeah.
we don't have the same in the Muslim community, at least in the UK.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen. We don't have the same thing because it's like, yes, people automatically gravitate towards their families, which is great, but
surely the Eid is more than just your family, because surely your family, you should be with them all the time anyways, most of the time. So, you would think, and as you said, it's not something that really happened with the Revert brothers, because they get invited. So why is it happening the same with the sisters, It's like less so.
Yeah, I think it's odd. And as my children are getting older, and I mean, my daughter's she's the eldest, and she's asking a lot of questions, and I'm having to answer things I don't want to answer. Yeah. It's just making me think more, and I'm having to say to my children, look, this is what we see, but should not be the norm.
Yeah.
So I always say to them, don't follow in those footsteps. You speak to people because they're people. You don't look at where they're where they're from, whether they're Muslim or not Muslim, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, which part of the Muslim world they're from, you don't, any of that. If they're a nice person, you talk to them.
Exactly.
End of. And I'm always trying to draw that into my children. So I don't want it to carry on. I mean, it's 2000 and what are we now? 22. And we shouldn't have this segregation still. And I don't want that for my children, because, as you know, we're reverts, so that's a whole different thing in itself. I mean, our children have been born and raised as Muslims.
Exactly.
But they will still be classed as reverts, because they've got a parent that's a revert.
Yeah,
so they're in their own little niche kind of area by themselves. So I'll just always try and tell them, don't worry about any of that stuff. And, you're Muslim. I'm like, Mummy's Muslim. I said, if you read things, I'm not, for sure, my daughter's saying, how can people always ask you if you're a revert? And she's like, you've been Muslim so long.
Yeah.
And she goes, how are you? She goes, I don't understand, how are you still like a revert? And I was like, I'm not. I was like, I'm not a Muslim. I said, it's just a people thing. I said, Allah wouldn't, I said to her, look, I was as you, and you was born and raised a Muslim. There's one rule for everyone. If you're Muslim, there's just one rule. Yeah. I said, yes. I said, the rules can change a little bit, depending on people's circumstances. But that can be for any situation. There's nothing special because I wasn't always a Muslim. And it frustrates, I can see it. If someone asks me, she hears, I can see it on her face.
Yeah.
And she's like, but Mummy, you're just Muslim.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
And I'm obviously used to it now, but obviously she's getting older. It's now she's now aware of it now at her age. And it's just sad that we let these things, come into the picture, because, I hear people talk about, I've known some people that maybe from Arab, Arab, and they'll talk about a sister that's single but Arab, and they're like, oh yeah, I helped do this, I took her here, and I did this and did that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we should do that for everyone. It should just be because they're from
your
the same
country,
background.
basically.
If someone needs help, they need help.
Exactly.
They need support, they need support. And, it should make that into it. And it's really sad that it does.
Yeah.
And I think these are things that make being a single mother even more difficult and, like I said before, isolating, and, then it can push sisters into getting married when maybe they shouldn't be getting married.
Yes, basically.
because
they're
craving something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can, out of kind of, I guess, desperation, they can put themselves in a situation that they probably shouldn't be in, and maybe if they felt a bit more support, wouldn't be in. Because, but then people tell you to get married. I remember working and trying to juggle the children and everything. I remember sister saying, well, if you got married, it'd be easier. Just get married. It'll be easier. And I was like,
as if getting married is easy in the first place. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a whole bunch of men standing there, like amazing guys, like standing on the side, just waiting for you to come and select the one that you want. When people say this, I look at them and I think, like, are you well? Because, like, I've known so many single sisters who are young, never been married, beautiful. Wallahi, they cannot find a husband. They cannot find a husband.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I look at them like, literally, like, are you okay? Like, SubhanAllah, it's so weird
And it
when people
shows
say stuff
you
like that.
marriage is not there to fix anything. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what marriage is about. First of all,
Exactly.
it isn't there to fix. It's not there to fix things. And I just think it's just quite patronising to say, you know, just go and get married.
Mm.
I mean, let's be realistic. You've got your children, and then you've got your husband. So is it going to be necessarily easier, or have you got another thing that you've got to do? I don't want
Basically.
to look at your husband as like a task, but we have to be realistic
Mm.
that, you know, you have then a responsibility to your husband,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine, but it's not necessarily going to make anything easier. You know, if your husband works, I don't know, say he works shifts and he's working 10 in the morning to 6, 8 in the evening, the things you're struggling with when you're single, you're still going to struggle with because your husband's at work.
Exactly.
So is
Exactly.
it making it easier? It's not necessarily making it easier. So people say things like that, oh, just get married, just get back with your ex. I just like,
SubhanAllah.
no, these things aren't, you know, solutions. All it needs is, I need to go to the doctor, sister, could you watch my children for half an hour?
Exactly.
Do I need to get married for that?
Yeah, SubhanAllah.
You know, oh, you know, I don't know, someone lives the same way as you. Do you mind dropping my children off at home because I'm going to be late to pick them from school?
Yeah.
Simple things like this mean the world to you as a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just not enough people out there willing to help. And I just think to myself, it's crazy because I've got cousins, my family aren't Muslim, no one else in my family is Muslim.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they're like, yeah, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, neighbour picks up my son from
Mm-hmm.
school because I work late. And it's just not a problem.
Yeah.
You know, the child's in the same class or in the same school, so yeah, it's not, and it shouldn't be a problem because it
Yeah.
isn't a problem. If you're going the same way,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's just 5 minutes out of the way, you know, if you can't spare 5 minutes to help someone out, what can you
Yeah.
spare?
Exactly.
And I just think, alhamdulillah for the group of sisters that I have in my circle, 'cause we support each other very well, but kind of we're in that group of rejects where
Yeah.
we're in similar fields and we know that, you know, kind of if we don't do it for each other, no one else
And
is
nobody
going
else.
to.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful for them. But I do wish that more of my circle were of raised Muslims,
Mm.
because most of us are either, apart from one. And I think it's just really sad because, you know, we should just, I don't know, we should just support each other in the same way. I don't know, I just don't think that culture should come into it. And I do feel, although people won't say it, I do feel culture is what's stopping people from really, like, being helpful to another person.
Definitely.
And I know Muslim sisters that even they have non-Muslim friends. And I think to myself, I've known you for 15 years
Yeah.
and we've never gone out.
Yeah.
I've never been to
SubhanAllah.
your house.
Mm.
Then I hear talking about, you know, your daughter's friend at school, her mum, I've done this X, Y, Z with them. And it's like, and I've suggested things. I will suggest things. And,
Yeah.
and everyone's too busy. I can't. And then you find that they can. It's just that, you know, they
They
don't
don't
want
want
to,
to.
or they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it trickles down to your children, which I think is the saddest thing about it,
Mm.
is it trickles down to the children. And I mean, yes, they're your children, but your children need other people
Exactly.
around
It's a
them. They need
community.
other children.
Yeah.
And this, my daughter not long ago had an incident at school. One evening she was crying, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she goes, "Oh, my friend at school had a party and didn't invite me."
SubhanAllah.
So, and she goes, "Oh, but we've been friends for so many years."
Yeah.
And she goes, "I never get invited." And she was, you know, it all came out. I realised she's been holding this in.
Mm.
She goes, "Why is no one in my class? They've never asked me to go to the park with them. I never go to." It all came out.
SubhanAllah.
And she goes, "But I know they do other children in the school." And my daughter went to a predominantly Asian Muslim school.
Mhm.
So I just let her talk, and I was just like, there's nothing I could say, to be honest.
Yeah, of course.
I just had to say to her, I just said to her, well, this is friendship. To be honest, whether you're your age, my age, this is just a part of, you know, how friendships are. And, you know, I said, oh, I just tried to console and just say to her, you know, just don't worry about it. And what I don't like is, she said, oh, I want to say something, but I don't want to say something.
Yeah.
And I said, what is it? And she goes, oh, is it because I'm black?
SubhanAllah.
And it's because I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
It's like I do feel that is part of the issue, but I don't want to say it to her because it's, at the same time, it's still an assumption to a certain degree. And she's still young, and I don't want to put that on her. But then you had the whole George Floyd thing, so she's now well aware of racism.
Yeah.
So, and I was just like, oh, I said, look, here's how you look at this. You don't be like that. If it is, that's not how you behave.
Yeah.
That's the only way to look at it. That's just, you just don't be like that. So don't let that stop you from inviting them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let that stop you from inviting anyone. And that's the only thing I could say. And it's just, I wasn't even aware that she was picking up on things like that.
And you know, it's just sad because, as you said, like obviously she's still young, and children are very perceptive. They can see things, and she's going through these experiences. And what annoys me about, like, you know, the fact that she's had to experience this is that, you know, I've seen the same thing as well. But I think, you know, because in the Muslim community, there is a lot of racism, and colorism as well is like a big deal in like the Asian community, and even some of the Arab communities as well. You know, they have it, but I've seen it mostly in the Asian community. And I feel like it does come from the parents, because if these other Muslim kids are having parties and not inviting your child, what I've noticed is that, you know, with Asians especially, they love to ask who the kids' parents are. So it's always there's always this big thing about who's the parents. So it's like, if the mother doesn't know you as the mother, and then the father doesn't know who your kid's father is, it's almost like that's a ticket to, oh well, you know, this child is then not acceptable for my children to mix with. I've seen that a lot. And even I've experienced it even when it came to things like working in the Muslim community as well. It's almost like, because I was a single woman, you know, and I don't have a husband that's attached to the masjid, you know, that brothers like know and frequent and like spend time with. Therefore, like, you know, me being in that environment was somehow not like acceptable or good enough. You know, it was this weird kind of, it's saying it, but it's like you said, it's like you can feel these things, and, you know, obviously we can't just base everything off feelings and call feelings facts, but when you're in that experience, you can't think of anything else that is making your particular situation different from somebody else who would be if completely the same as you, if it was not for the fact that they came from a Muslim family, maybe, you know. So that's the difference. Like, you see that, like you mentioned, other sisters who were single, but they're from Arab backgrounds or Asian backgrounds, they automatically get help from their communities. But because being a revert, you see yourself, it's like you're just this one person, and you don't automatically get that help. Nobody's coming to, like, oh, help you because you're a single mum. Because it's like, well, I'm not, like, Arab or Asian or whatever, so you don't automatically get this backup, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot to do. It's a lot to do with the whole who's the parents, and I just think with my children in particular, because their dad's Asian, so they're half Asian, and you can see my children, you know, they look more Asian than they do black. You know, their skin color. I mean, my daughter wears a scarf, so until you see, like, unless you saw it without a scarf, you wouldn't even really notice fully. A lot of people tend to think that they're Yemeni for some reason, but a lot of people don't necessarily see them from the Muslim community and think, okay, those children have a black parent. So, but things like that, and, you know, when she tells other people, you know, if she says something and the children ask other, like, Asian children, go, how do you know that? She's like, my dad's Asian. No, he's not. And all these type of things. No, he's not. Your mum's black. And it's like, what? How are you going to tell someone who their dad is? And I think it's so odd. But I have it from adults. I have adults do the same thing, so I'm not surprised. Because adults do the exact same thing. you know, your children's that,
And the thing is, I think especially
yeah, and I'm like, yes. And they're like,
I think especially in your case, because I think, as I said, within the Asian community especially, there's so much colorism, and they have the whole the caste system as well. So even within themselves, they discriminate a lot when it comes to, like, the complexion. So it's almost like automatically, marrying somebody who's a darker complexion is already unacceptable. So when your children are telling them that, oh, well, my dad's Asian or whatever background he is, it's like automatically like, oh, shock and surprise. Because my kids, they're Arab, they're half Moroccan. So it's never been a thing. It's never really been a thing for them. Like, they look like kind of like black kids, but you can see they're fair skinned as well. So like they kind of almost look like other mixed race kids, like kind of not the typical look, but they've got this Arab look. So a lot of when the Arabs see them, they identify them automatically as Arab. Do you know what I mean? They don't question them like, oh, like you can't be Arab or something. They like, it's more obvious to them. I think that's because generally with especially North Africans, they have this kind of mixed look anyways, a lot of them, their hair's textured and things like that. So they blend in a lot more. But I think this is one of the issues that, children who have like, if you're half Asian, half black, especially if it's like Pakistani or Indian, something like that, the look can be, obviously, and mixed race kids look can be so varied anyways, but when the skin is darker complexion and they know that you're the mother as well, they're not even going to associate your kids with being Asian at all.
Yeah, so this is a thing that we've had this issue, and I think girls are more bothered about it than boys.
Yes.
My son's a bit younger and he's never really had this issue.
Mm-hmm.
When he's told his friends that we're basically Pakistani, half Pakistani, they don't bat an eyelid.
Mm-hmm.
I notice girls tend to have a lot more to say.
Yeah.
For whatever reason that is. Maybe because mums are saying too much, I don't know, at home. But like, I can remember having an issue with a parent who was asking about my hair. So, and at the time, my daughter was smaller, so you could see what her hair looked like. So, she goes, oh, have you got hair like your daughter? And I said, well, no, because I'm full black.
Yeah.
And my daughter's mixed. And she goes, no, your kids are black. I was like, no, they're not. I'm like, my children lied. I said, no, they're not. And the funniest thing was, this sister's Pakistani and her kids were darker than mine. So I was like, no, my kids aren't. I was like, no, they're not black, they're mixed.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, they're mixed. And I said, my children have hair they have typical hair. If you have an Asian and a black person mixed, that's typically what their hair would come out like.
Yeah.
I was like, black people's hair is completely different. So typical Caribbean black people's hair is completely different.
Yeah.
So it was going back and forth. She's like, no, your kids are black. And I was like, they're not black. And she goes, they look just like you. And I was like,
well, they look good.
But she meant skin colour.
Yeah.
Because at the time, my children did look like me. I mean, people change. At the time, my children actually did look quite different to me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but she meant skin colour. And I was going, no. I was like, no. And she goes, oh, but you'd never told that your children aren't full black. And then there was another Pakistani sister then. She could hear and she then joined in. I was like, and she goes, sister. She goes, no, you can see those children are mixed. And she goes, there's nothing wrong with that. They're mixed, Just because their mum was black. And I didn't have to say it. The sister was really frustrated. But I just thought, I don't know how you can just be so blinded by a label. Because I can be my skin colour and be full Asian.
Exactly.
You have, people in Asia that look as though they could be from the Caribbean.
Exactly.
You have people, obviously, from, like, the Middle East that look like they could be all over the place. And
exactly.
The fact that I'm black has blinded you to the fact that my children, are basically half Asian, and you can see that they're half something. But I don't have this issue with black people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the problem is it's an obvious racism issue, because it's like they're trying to disassociate the fact that your child and your children, as you mentioned, there was even lighter complexion than her children. So it's like she's trying to disassociate the fact that your children are Asian, or like they have an Asian mixed background, and comparing that. And it's like this superiority complex as well. I'm spun. We're going into kind of almost another different subject completely, but it's like, this is what happens, because wallahi, this should not even be something that is a discussion. Like, she shouldn't be even asking you this kind of stuff. But I've noticed the same thing. This bothers people. Like, and this is another reason why, coming back to that question that you mentioned earlier, on that people ask you if your kids are Muslim. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because you're black and you've got these kids which, they look maybe racially ambiguous, or like, maybe somebody can't decide whether they're black, whether they're Asian, whether they're whatever, so they're asking you, are your kids Muslim? It's all ties in with that kind of mentality, which a lot of people, they don't realize. Like, if you've got mixed kids, that people don't seem to realize these are some of the issues that we can face at times, and like I've met sisters, for example, Asian sisters, and they've just blanket told me, they don't believe that, they don't believe in mixed marriages, that people should only marry people from their own culture. And it's just like, well, I'm sitting there with my two mixed race kids, and you're just like, it's like, and they don't feel any way to say it, and I've had sisters that blatantly just tell me, oh, well, I'm, looking for a spouse for my daughter, for example, and if you know anybody, just, but he has to be Pakistani, he can't be too dark-skinned, all this. And it's like, well, you're looking at me as a black woman, and you're saying these things to me, and it's just like, and why are you even asking me? Because how am I going to be able to find, or help find your daughter a Pakistani man to marry? Like, what do I know about the community? I'm not part of your community anyways, so if that's your specification, how am I supposed to help you? As a reader as well, you just think to yourself, like, certain things, you wonder why people even approach you to ask you that. But it's almost like, in them asking, it's almost like they're making some kind of ambiguous statements, like trying to make certain points, indirectly.
Yeah.
That, because it's just like, I have nothing to do with this whole thing here, that, whatever it is that's going on with you. So why are you coming to me and saying this?
It's weird, but it does time to being single, because when I was married, I mean, people are always going to think what they're going to think, but they won't necessarily say it. And I know that when I was married, and people's tongues did not say as much, they would choose what to say.
Yeah.
When you're single, it's just like open season, and they can say what they want.
Yes.
But I know when you're married, people think a bit more. And I don't know, I guess it's down to respect. I guess you get respect because you're married.
Yes.
And I had this, that you were saying about being in the masjid, and I had this at work where I was laughing to myself when you talk about whether you should be working in the masjid because, you're a revert and things. And I remember being at work, and I remember thinking, the fact that I'm back in a revert is causing some issues at work. And I worked in a Muslim environment. Yeah. And people say it doesn't. I was like, it is. It is. I can sit here and I can see how the Pakistani sister who's single is spoken to, or her work conditions are versus mine. And I can see how the sister's married. If a sister was married and said, I can't attend a meeting on this day because my husband said, okay, sister, no problem.
Exactly.
If I went, I can't attend because my children find a babysitter. This is literally what I got. I remember being told, find a babysitter. I was like, oh, so if I'm married, I can just get out of all these things. Because and I just thought, this wouldn't make any difference. And eventually, I remember saying something. I actually said it, I went, oh, if I need to get married, then I have to turn up to work events. And I said it because I was so annoyed.
Yeah.
I was so annoyed because so many times, my husband said, my husband said.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was thinking, we all work, we all sign the same contract, we're all doing the same job. So if it's mandatory to turn up on a Sunday for something, then it's mandatory for everyone. But my husband said, okay, don't worry, sister, we'll fill you in. And I just thought,
there's so many double standards.
We need to respect people for being people. You don't give someone more respect because, you know, there's a man that might give you a phone call and moan. It should make a difference. It shouldn't make a difference. And women are expected to, especially when you're single, we're expected to put work before our children.
Yeah.
But if I was married, you'd never tell me to put work before my husband.
Definitely.
You'd never do that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
You know, I had the same experience in the sense that, you know, like being self-employed, especially when my kids were younger, people used to say to me, and as well I was doing homeschooling, okay? People used to say to me, oh, why don't you just put your children in school and get a job? And it's just like, well, I've got a job. I work for myself. You know, I'm self-employed, and yeah, I want to do homeschooling because I want to spend that time with my kids. Why shouldn't I want to spend this time with them? Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, it's important. That's how I want to, you know, that's how I choose to live. But there was a lot of pressure. Like, people would say these kind of things, and I just think, like, you know, if I was a married sister and I was at home, you wouldn't be saying that. You know, subhanallah. So what are some of the causes of emotional pain, and how can we deal with it as single Muslim mothers?
Oh, this question, it took me quite a while to think about this. And I kind of, every kind of answer we've had so far, it all stems to the same thing. And I feel that the isolation that we can feel kind of adds to everything. It makes, you know, it magnifies everything. You know, we don't have that support system.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have time to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, you know, I think even if you go to a massive try and talk to someone there's just no one there, I guess, to just hear you out for your situation just as it is. I always feel that you being a single mother always has to come into it. Sometimes it's like, no, I just forget that. I'm telling you, I feel a certain way. I know my situation, I don't need to be reminded of it. And it's like, people can't just see you for you.
Yeah.
You're always seen as, you know, the sister that's divorced.
Yeah.
And it's always like, well, am I not just a sister?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you have to mention, like, the fact I'm divorced?
Yes.
It's these things, and I don't think we realise how this type of creeps up and it builds up, and it's so emotionally draining. The way that we feel any issues that we have.
Yeah.
People tend to always put it down to the fact that you're a single mother.
Yes, that's right.
That always comes into it.
Mm-hmm.
It always comes into it, and sometimes I think it's got nothing to do with being single. You know, I could be married and still have the same problems. Being single's got nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
And, you know, sometimes I feel like, I say to her, God, you know, Allah, I'm not just be married. It's just so much easier. And things like that. But I think, well, no, because it is what it is. And, you know, other people just need to, I guess, think a bit more before they speak. And just be a bit more, you know, just don't let the fact that, you know, that we're, I guess, single mothers make them think that anything, do you know what I mean? Things are different, because things aren't different. We have, okay, things are a bit more difficult for us, yes. I'm not denying that, but when it comes down to the way we feel and things, it's not just because we're single, you know, single mother. And I don't know, I just feel that a lot of people see that first.
Yes.
And don't hear what you're saying or anything else. Like I said earlier, marriage is not going to fix things. It's not going to fix anything.
Yeah.
I'm still going to find a job. It's got nothing to do with being married or not. You know, if I'm down about something, being married is not going to change it. So I do feel like the label.
Situations. How do you usually deal with it, though?
I'll be honest, I don't deal with it the best way. I think I do what most women do, and I just keep it to myself. I know it's not the best way to deal with it, but I do find that, you know, trying to find that support network. I mean, I've been Muslim a long time. It's just exhausting. I just can't be bothered anymore.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I just can't. I've got other things to do. It's just too much. It's just too much work. So therefore, I don't anymore. You know, it's not everything in your life has to be easy. And I've just come to terms with, I guess this is one of my trials.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine. The fact that I've now come to terms with that makes it a lot easier. Beforehand,
really.
when I was fighting it, it was making it more difficult. And like I said, I have my small circle of friends, and I really appreciate them, and I just go to them. You know, if I need to. I know that they're there for me, and we have to be grateful for what we have, and try and make a change if we can.
Inshallah. Yeah, definitely. It's small things.
And there's plenty of dua as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just it's difficult, and it's just one of those things that we just have to, you know, we can't rely on someone else to do things for us.
Of course, of course.
So as much as it would be ideal if we did have that support network, you know, we don't all have it, but we can be that support network for someone else.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
what I try to do is, if I do see someone else, I will try my best to kind of give someone what I wish I had from the community.
Yeah.
So if I, you know, if I come across, even if it's just like a website that's really good, I'll always make sure I try and share it with people. You know, I find with the Muslim community, you know, sometimes people hold on to things as it's personal. And, you know, I can remember once I was trying to find a tailor, and I can remember asking a lot of Asian sisters, because they have their clothes sewed.
Yeah, of course.
No one knew a tailor.
SubhanAllah.
And I was thinking, it's a tailor. It's not personal to you. They're making money.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. You know, it's like, and this type of mentality, these type of things add to, like, single mothers just not bothering and, you know, keeping ourselves to ourselves, and possibly finding friendships that we maybe shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because they're just easier.
Of course.
I mean, they're just easier. They're easier. And I've spoken to sisters that are like married and things about this, and they don't get it. They're like, we wouldn't see what the big deal is of things. I was like, but you wouldn't see what the big deal is because you're not in that position.
Exactly.
I said, but I could point out so many sisters that will agree and be like, yeah, this is the problem. And she goes, well, you know, when they see us, we look like we're happy, we're getting on with life. And I'm like, well, yes, we're going to. We're not going to, you know, not do anything.
Yeah.
I said, but these things do affect people. You know, especially I say to people, if you're a weaver, you've got to deal with the fact that you don't fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't really fit into, I guess, your old life.
Yeah, of course.
Anymore properly. And then I said, you know, you kind of get fed that, you know, being Muslim, we just want Ummah, we want community, you know, this, that and the other. Then you become Muslim and you find the opposite.
Exactly.
So then I said it's a lot to navigate. And then when you add things like marriage and children into it, and then divorce, I said it just becomes a lot. And the fact that, you know, people make comments and people aren't that helpful. It might be small things, but it can, you know, it can make a molehill look like a mountain.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult, but I've learned to, I think we need to make sure we know ourselves. It's very important that you know who you are.
Of course.
Otherwise you will really struggle with these things. And it's important to things like just take time out for yourself, even if it's just to read something, even if you just take 5 minutes to read one page of the Quran.
Yeah.
If you do need that time to take out, reflect and just breathe. Because as a single mother, you're always busy.
Of course.
You're busy. You've got this to do, but you're busy, worrying about, you know, what should I do this, worrying about the children, worrying about this. And you forget about yourself. You completely forget about yourself. And then, you know, you just reach a point where it's a bit like, not a breakdown. Some people might have a breakdown, but you reach a point where you're exhausted. And, you know, we need to make sure we take care of ourselves, not just our children. If we can't look after them properly, we don't look after ourselves anyway.
Of course, yeah. So, sister, what would you say some of the misconceptions are in the Muslim community about being a single mother?
That we have it easy.
Mm.
There's some married sisters like, oh, you're all right, you don't have a husband.
Yeah, they love to say that.
Yeah. And I just think, no.
Yeah, you're lucky, you can do whatever you want. They'll say stuff like that, yeah, you can do whatever you like.
Yeah, and I think...
You've got so much free time.
I don't understand what they mean when they say you can do what you want. I always think, what? Why is it that we want... I don't get it. So I always think, yeah, like what do you mean we can do what we want? But yeah, there's this thing, oh, you know, you just got it so easy. Yeah, you've got free time, you can do what you want. And I think to myself, well, no, we don't have it that easy.
Mm.
For instance, if you want to take your children, I don't know, to a theme park, if you're not into rides, you've got to go on these rides you don't want to. It's like there's so many things. Or if you have an odd number and the theme park saying, you know, one adult per child,
mm-hmm.
you can't split yourself into 2 or 3 or 4.
Exactly.
So I just think to myself, well, no, it's not necessarily easier because you don't have a husband. I mean, some things, I can see some things that are easier. Like cooking meals, for instance, is a lot easier. I've only got to worry about what I want to cook.
Exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, and the large scale of things, it isn't easier. If I'm ill, and I still have to do everything for the children at the same time.
Exactly.
There's no one there while I try and sleep it off
mm-hmm.
that can just nip to the shop. That I don't have. You don't have that.
Yeah.
You know, your whole schedule literally has to be around, you know, your children. You don't have someone to share that with.
Mm.
I mean, yes, we could ask other people to step in, but we have to remember that it's not their responsibility, like it would be your husband's responsibility. So, I think people think that, you know, that it's just so much easier when you're single. I think also things like we're single by choice to a certain degree, as in like you don't want to be married, that's why you're single.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, as you were saying earlier, it's difficult to find a husband. It's not always a case that, you know, that we necessarily want to be single. There's plenty of single sisters with children without that would love to be married.
Yeah.
But the fact it's taken 10, 15 years, it's not because they've chosen for it to be that way. Yeah, I think they are some of the biggest misconceptions.
Yes,
and also I find people think there's something wrong with you. I think when they ask about divorce, it's like, what did you do?
Yeah.
And people don't necessarily ask you that, but they kind of ask questions trying to work that out. What did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you do? It's like, and that as well, I don't like that. What did you do? Or we gave up easily and things like that. There's so many misconceptions that are usually tend to be a judgment on the person's character, which I don't like.
Yeah.
When you just don't, it's just none of their business.
Yes.
Unless you're going to help me find a husband, you don't need to know what went wrong before.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? You really just don't need to. You just don't need to know. You really just don't need to know, and it shouldn't be something that's even crossing your mind anyway.
Yeah.
You just meet someone and they're single. You meet someone and they're single. You shouldn't be thinking.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
It's not necessary. It should make a difference. Just judge people based on what you see then. Because you never know, we could be divorced because we particularly weren't nice sisters at the time.
Yeah.
People grow and people change.
Of course.
And it's not something we need to discuss with people that are not going to be involved in our lives in that way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I just think they just don't need to know.
Yes, subhanAllah. So what would you advise other single Muslim mothers who are struggling, especially when it comes to the aspect of their deen?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is if they are able to have a good co-parenting relationship, try and work on it. It is difficult and it can take years. Whether you're Muslim or not doesn't make a difference. Obviously, we think as Muslims it should be easier if we're practicing, but that's not the case all the time. You know, try and work on it. And if you can speak to, you know, your children's family and you have that independent relationship with them, have it.
Mm.
Because it's so important for them to be able to go to, you know, the other side of the family.
Yeah.
Regardless of what mum and dad have got going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can still have that connection. And also it gives you some time where, you know, most of the time your children will be cared for kind of like you were cared for because they're their family.
Mm-hmm.
So the added stress of you don't want to leave them there too long, or this type of thing kind of goes out the window. Also, take time for yourself. So if you want to study, try and find a way where you can do it. I know doing everything online just means it's just you, but we have to make use of how things are today. And
Yeah, of course.
even if it's just a half an hour class once a week or something,
Mm-hmm.
just take that time out to do something for you. Because you're not just a mum. Before we had children, we were people.
Exactly.
We had lives. You know, we were doing whatever we were doing. You're still that person. However, you're also a mum. So you still need you need to merge both worlds. And I feel we throw away ourselves way too much. And this which makes being a parent, even if you're married, it can make being a parent a lot harder than it has to be.
Yeah.
So take time for yourself. Try your best to find, you don't need to have a huge friendship, to have a quality friendship circle.
Yeah, yeah.
So if that's one friend, it's one friend.
Mm-hmm.
If you know it's one friend that, you know, can support you and you can speak to and you can rely on, that can help you, then one is better than none. And one is better than having, I don't know, 20 sisters that won't even babysit your child for half an hour.
Yeah.
You know, it's quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And also just, you know, it does get easier. I mean, I think whether you're a newly single mum and your children are babies, or whether they're, you know, 8, 9, 10, or teenagers, it's going to be difficult at first, but you know, you will find your stride. And I find that keeping a routine is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone knows what they are doing and when, and you know, you're just not as flustered.
Yes, probably.
And then you can work out when you do have time for something, or you know, maybe we're doing too much. And take breaks. So if that break means you don't cook that evening,
Then don't cook, yeah.
and don't feel guilty about having a takeaway or just having something from the freezer or leftovers or something. We need those breaks. It can be something as simple as that. You know, it may be this weekend we're not going to go anywhere and do anything, we're just going to stay in the house.
Yeah.
We need to take those breaks where you can just relax and not feel that you've got, you know, all the pressures and burden of life all the time. We need to make use of that. And if you're single, I know a lot of people will go on holiday to de-stress.
Yeah.
I know some sisters will travel. There are many of us that won't travel by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I don't travel by myself.
Yeah.
So I have to make use of, you know, things like, okay, I'm not going to cook. If my children can go and stay somewhere overnight, I'm like, okay, go. That's my break. That's my time off.
Exactly.
If I decide to know something for the next few days, it's a bank holiday weekend, like everyone else, we're just going to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take those breaks when you can get them. You don't need to be super mum all the time. You don't need to be perfect, and just try best not to worry about what everyone else is saying. We need to go thick skins as single
Basically,
Muslims.
yeah, you do.
you need
Definitely.
you need to have like rhino skin.
Yeah.
You really need to. And you know, if I know some people can drown people out, if you have that skill, use it.
Yeah.
Because you are going to need it.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general, as a single mother, you always get people saying things, and for some reason there's an added layer when you're a Muslim single mother.
Yeah.
So it's just try not to take things personally. You know, don't feel guilty as well.
Yeah.
If you are working, don't feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
If you take time out to learn something or go somewhere, or even just go and have something to eat with friends, don't feel guilty. Because if you were married, you would take time out to spend time with your husband anyway, away from the children.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a normal thing. It's
Yeah.
a normal thing not to be around your children all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I feel we can feel guilt, and I feel we're also made to feel guilt.
Definitely.
You know, oh sister, you're out, oh, where are your children? Oh, you haven't got your children again. It's just like, no, I don't.
Yeah, it's
No,
like default, isn't it? It's like the default. I used to call my kids my attachments, you know, because like everywhere I go, they're there. So, you know, and people like just used to call me by my children's names, you know, do you know what I mean? So, and I never minded. But it's just like, when you turn up to somewhere and they don't see the kids, it's just be like, you know, it's almost like they'll look around you and behind you, like, oh yeah, where's the kids? Oh, you should have brought the kids. Especially when my children started getting older, because your kids get to a certain age where they don't want to be going out with you every time you go into a friend's house or wherever you're going, and they're old enough you can leave them by themselves at home. So I started doing that, and then people will be like, oh yeah, you should have brought your daughter, and I'll be like, well, my daughter doesn't want to come. She's old enough now to say, well, no, she doesn't actually want to come out with me to sit down with, you know, older people that she's not interested in what they're saying. So it's just like, well, yeah, it's nice that you want to look at them, but they don't want to look at you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's you know, I say to people, I'm a person aside from my children.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
I'm a person. So yeah, this you know, it's perfectly fine. There's no guilt in it. As long as it's balanced and you're taking care of what you need to do, then fine. This, you know, your children are, you know, I've said to my children, you do so many things that have nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
So many things you do have absolutely nothing to do with me. I sit there and I watch and I taxi you around and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, so I can do things that have nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
Because I'm an individual.
Exactly.
So, you know, we have to remember we are individuals, and obviously when they're really small, you have priorities. And when they're really small, they are priority. And I guess we take a back seat a bit. But as they get older, like saying, and they can voice their opinion, I don't want to go, and
exactly.
you're more able to either leave them by themselves or leave them with someone, and it's not going to be an issue, then do that.
Yeah,
you know, as they get older, okay, you want to learn to read the Quran, it might take you 2-3 hours a week. Obviously, you can't have your children there. So the fact that you're not with them for those 2-3 hours a week, it's not a big deal. If you and your friends get together every 2 weeks, every month, and have a girly evening without kids, have it. Why do your children need, I mean, you are a person, you need to take care of your needs, your children don't need to be there. If anyone says anything, then, you know, I don't know, just ignore it.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
because they don't have to be there all the time, you know.
Exactly.
And also one thing I would say is, we haven't kind of touched on it properly, do not feel pressured to remarry anyone.
Yeah.
And also, don't be against marriage either. You need to find that middle ground.
Of course.
Because I feel like people will push you to be getting married. I remember right after my divorce, my sister's going, oh, are you looking?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, there was barely just like ink not even dry on the paper yet.
Yeah.
I'm not, I've got 2 babies.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
looking at it, like working. No, I don't have time to be doing that. And it's not a right time. And, you know, sisters were constantly trying to the point where I went against marriage. I was like, you know what, I
Yeah,
don't ever want
yeah.
to get married again. It just got on my nerves. So the whole thing I just don't want it. It's too much.
Mhm.
Which obviously is not, we don't go to extremes.
Yeah, of course.
So don't feel pressured, you know, to get married. And then don't be on the stream where, you know, I hate men, I'm never going to get married. You know, don't have it as your focus, but be
Exactly.
ready
Just
for
have
it.
to have that middle ground. Yes, subhanallah.
Yeah,
Very
but
important.
be ready for it, because you never know what
Exactly.
Allah's going to bring your way.
Of course.
And just don't, if you are looking for marriage, don't settle.
Mhm.
If you've been divorced, we should know this, not to settle. One of the things we should
Exactly.
take out of a divorce is how important it is not to settle,
Yeah.
especially if you're getting married for a second time or third
Mhm.
or fourth, and your children get older and seeing it. If it's not right, just don't do it. Don't think,
Exactly.
oh, maybe it'll get better. No. You know,
Exactly.
yeah, you've got to be sure. And there's nothing wrong with being single.
Mhm.
Not everyone is supposed to be married for a long time. Not everyone's supposed to be married at all.
Exactly.
And we have to remember that, because it's almost put that a marriage is hard if you're a Muslim. It's like it's something you have to do, and we don't. We do not at all have to be married.
Exactly.
But kind of silently, it's as though we do, and we don't. And that's like another added pressure on us anyway.
Yeah.
So they are, I guess, my main advice for anyone out there listening that's in the same situation.
Yeah, mashallah, Allah Mubarak. That's really, really good and comprehensive advice. What would you say one of the hardest things that you've had to deal with as a single mother is so far?
Okay, I'd say there's 2 things. I mentioned one earlier.
Mhm.
Work expects me to put work for my children.
Yeah.
That I found really difficult. Because there was times when I remember my children were ill,
Yeah.
and I was having to take time off work. One was ill, and I had to take time off work. And then as that child got better, the other one fell ill.
Subhanallah.
So I was like, yeah, I've now been back like 2 days, but I've got to go back off again.
Yeah.
And it was quite fine someone else look after them. And I said, I know it's inconvenient. I said, obviously I don't want to do it. I know it's convenient for work, but this is a situation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my child. And it was like, yeah, but you've already had time off when the other one was ill. And there was no understanding. And I worked for Muslims as well, which I didn't like.
Yes.
I thought it'd be easier. And I was just like, I shouldn't ever be made to feel bad about putting my children first.
Yeah.
When my children need me at the time, it's not as though, you know, they didn't need me. They were ill at the time, so I was feeling. I find that really, really difficult. And I think the other one was I mentioned earlier about, you know, my daughter had the issue with her friends and stuff.
Yeah, subhanallah.
That I found really hard, because it's just I don't know. You know, you're going to have these conversations with your children at some point. I just didn't think it would be that young.
That early, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just sad when your children see anything or realize anything negative. It's not nice.
Of course.
And that situation, we can't do anything about it. It's absolutely out of our hands. We really can't do anything about it. And I mean, people could say move and this, that, and the other, but you can't keep moving every time there's an issue.
Yeah, definitely. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, so I think those things, the whole community thing, and I guess our children realising they don't really fit into the Muslim community, it's quite heartbreaking, especially because they're born and raised Muslims.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is their community, you know, I guess more than it is mine, because that's what they've been from birth. So it's that is struggles. I mean, the whole sleepless nights and all these type of things, I'd rather deal with that 10 times over than things like this where you know you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So what would you say then are one of your most validating moments?
I would say that my children know who Allah is. I thought about this question, and at one point I thought, that when people try and say, your children are well behaved, but then I thought, well, I don't really care what they say.
Yeah.
If that's not really validating. But the fact that, despite the circumstances that we go through, I'm raising children, they know who Allah is. They are lovely children. By the will of Allah, they've turned out all right so far.
Alhamdulillah.
And they seem happy. And, my children are old enough where I can have conversations with them about me being single and things like that. And they're happy with how things are.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
They are happy with how things are. And even they know the kind of benefits of obviously having, I won't say a dad, because if I get married, it's not necessarily their dad like that.
Yeah.
A male in the house. They can see the benefits, but then they're like, but we're not missing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they did think they were missing something at one point, but I think they've come to realise, well, no, because, we get to do this, we get to do that. Mummy takes us here, Mummy does this. Now with their dad, I will say if I can't do it, I'll say to look, you need to do this.
Yeah. You
need to do that, and I make sure for them that it does get done. And also they realise that you don't get everything you want anyway, that's just life. So it's not a big deal if they don't always get to do something. But I think that for me is like the biggest validation in that, they're happy. They are happy children. We can communicate well. Obviously nothing's perfect. Children are children.
Yeah.
But as things go, we're just like any other average family. We have the same ups, we have the same downs. I'd like to think if someone asked them, like I ask my son all the time, are you going to leave home? And he always says no. So that for me is like validation.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'll get the house next door. That for me is like validation that I'm doing something right. So I mean, he probably changed his mind when he's 20.
Yeah. But at least for now.
I mean, yeah, I'm like, but it just, obviously he's going to grow up and change his mind. But that for me is like validation. When your children say, oh, Mummy, I love you, out of the blue, validation. When you say to your children, oh, we need to go and pray. They go and make wudu and they know what to do. All these things just show me, okay, I'm doing something right.
Alhamdulillah.
And I think that's what as single mothers, this is where we need to look for our validation, not from other people.
Yes.
We look at what are we required to do by Allah. Can we see that? We don't need to have a tick list. Our children don't need to be walking around and saying salam to every Muslim on the street. But we have to know for ourselves, do your children, do they know who Allah is? If it's time to pray, will they pray? Do they know how to pray? Do they know some basic Islamic knowledge? These are things that we need to focus on, and that's our validation. And just leave it as that. Let everyone else just treat it as white noise. And we don't notice white noise, and that's what we need to do with when people are saying things. Just don't notice it and don't take it in.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair, Sissy. Really given a lot of your time. We've talked for quite a long time now, alhamdulillah.
It's alhamdulillah. My children are busy. So that's why I said this is the perfect time. They're doing activities at the time. So normally I'm literally just sat in the car waiting for them. So alhamdulillah, it's been helpful to do something, do you know what I mean, with that time I have.
All right, Sister Barakallahu Feekum. I'm going to let you go because I'm sure you have other things to do with your time.
Okay, no problem.
Joining us today, and inshallah, I hope everybody who's listening will have benefited. Barakallahu Feekum.
Okay,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.